never believe it. It's so insane. I mean, this is a frantic publicity every day on television. The president's on TV at least once a day. And celebrations of the dead, the Patriots, exposés on Al-Qaeda. It's just relentless. It's like 25 hours a day of just how tragic it was and how patriotic it was, and how much we have to get back at these dirty little swine. And I wouldn't be at all surprised for, I mean, as hideous and dumb as it sounds, an invasion of Iraq on September 11th. Yeah, I'll go out and take a long shot bet on that.
That you think that the occasion might actually be used as a way of using that popular fervour or that popular patriotism as an appropriate date to launch an invasion?
Well, it seems like that to me, because that's their only power base, really, is that frenzy of patriotism. And if a revenge strike, Uncle Sam gets even.
I can hear you! I can hear you, the rest of the world hears you, and the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
19 men armed with box cutters, directed by a man on dialysis in a cave fortress halfway around the world, using a satellite phone and a laptop, directed the most sophisticated penetration of the most heavily defended airspace in the world, overpowering the passengers and the military combat-trained pilots on 4 commercial aircraft before flying those planes wildly off course for over an hour without being molested by a single fighter interceptor. These 19 hijackers, devout religious fundamentalists who like to drink alcohol, snort cocaine, and live with pink-haired strippers, managed to knock down 3 buildings with 2 planes in New York. While in Washington, a pilot who couldn't handle a single-engine Cessna was able to fly a 757 in an 8,000-foot descending 270-degree corkscrew turn to come exactly level with the ground, hitting the Pentagon and the budget analyst office where DoD staffers were working on the mystery of the $2.3 trillion that Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld had announced missing from the Pentagon's coffers in a press conference the day before, on September 10th, 2001. Luckily, the news anchors knew who did it within minutes.
Osama bin Laden.
The pundits knew within hours.
Osama bin Laden.
The administration knew within the day.
Terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbor them.
And the evidence literally fell into the FBI's lap.
That a hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site, if you can believe that.
But for some reason, a bunch of crazy conspiracy theorists demanded an investigation into the greatest attack on American soil in history. That investigation was delayed, underfunded, set up to fail, a conflict of interest, and a cover-up from start to finish. It was based on testimony extracted through torture, the records of which were destroyed. It failed to mention the existence of WTC-7, Able Danger, P-TECH, Sibel Edmonds, OBL and the CIA, and the drills of hijacked aircraft being flown into buildings that were being simulated at the precise same time that those events were actually happening. It was lied to by the Pentagon, the CIA, the Bush administration, and as for Bush and Cheney, well, no one knows what they told it because they testified in secret, off the record, not under oath, and behind closed doors. It didn't bother to look at who funded the attacks because that question is ultimately of little practical significance. Still, the 9/11 Commission did brilliantly, answering all of the questions the public had, except most of the victims' family members' questions, and pinned blame on all the people responsible, although no one so much as lost their job, determining the attacks were
failure of imagination.
Because
nobody in our government, at least, and I don't think the prior government could envision flying airplanes into buildings.
Except the Pentagon, FEMA, NORAD, and the NRO. The DIA destroyed 2.5 terabytes of data on Able Danger, but that's okay because it probably wasn't important. The SEC destroyed their records on the investigation into the insider trading before the attacks, but that's okay because destroying the records of the largest investigation in SEC history is just part of routine record keeping. NIST has classified the data that they used for their model of WTC-7's collapse, but that's okay because knowing how they made their model of the collapse would jeopardize public safety.
My name's Tom Sullivan. I worked for Controlled Demolition Incorporated, CDI, the top-rated explosives demolition firm in the world, owned by the Loiseau family during the years surrounding 9/11. And I worked for them as an explosives loader for 2.5 years. As an explosives loader, my job was to place explosives in the buildings to prepare them for demolition. There are many steps that you need to take. First off is you have to weaken the building. To weaken the building, that means the staircase, all the staircases have to be cut at intervals. The firewalls have to be removed. The elevator shafts have to be cut.
I looked down to my right, and the elevators exploded, something out of like a Bruce Willis Die Hard movie. People just come running out of the elevators on fire, fireballed. I mean, it was like, what is going on?
When we load a building, we have to have all the support columns on a given load floor fail at the same time, within milliseconds of one another. And therefore, the entire building comes down in a synchronized implosion.
Fire department commander telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. And I said, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull, and then we watched the building collapse. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it, pull it, pull it.
Although we are told that 4 or 5 of the alleged hijackers were on each of the flights, no proof of this claim has been provided. The story, of course, is that they did not force their way onto the planes, but they bought tickets. If so, their names should have been on the flight manifests. But the flight manifests that have been released contain neither the names of the alleged hijackers nor any Arab names whatsoever. We have also been given no proof that the remains of any of these men were found in the wreckage. One final little problem is that several of these 19 men, according to stories published by the BBC and British newspapers, are still alive.
Now, if by some terrible, terrible concatenation of circumstances, both my co-pilot and I on this flight were suddenly taken ill, how would you land this plane? They have tried various simulations. For example, those with American civil private pilot licenses in America who can fly light planes were invited onto simulators of big jets. And one of them couldn't even operate the seat that moved him towards the control. Another one turned the radio off. Another one turned off the autopilot and instantly crashed the plane. So the fact is, it's incredibly difficult.
You know, again, when you're talking about a 250,000-pound airplane being pointed at a specific target, that's not as easy as you think it is to do.
One of the scenarios in Operation Northwoods was to take a regularly scheduled commercial airliner and take a similar type plane, paint the tail numbers up to resemble that of the commercial airliner, fly it by remote control out over the Caribbean, and by remote control blow it up after sending a tape-recorded message saying, "Help, we're being attacked by Cuban MiGs." This was in 1962.
Afterwards, did you recognize all three?
No, just one. I only recognized one of them. The Attar, I guess is his name.
The ringleader? The guy with the 1,000-yard stare.
Right. He barely spoke a word to me, but when I'd come over, I'd be like, geez, what's his problem? Because he had that really mean look on his face all the time, like he was very unhappy. So you know,
I keep hearing
that. So I mean, he never really spoke. And then the other guy was a heavier set guy who did all the talking, you know, with me anyway. Was very outgoing, was very, pleasant actually.
Atta and his young sidekick weren't arguing over the proper interpretation of the Quran.
They were loud, you know, making comments at the hand on the table, this kind of thing. We're talking $200,000. We have to answer to the family. I thought it was mafia. You know, like when I'd walk by, and I tried to stay away from the table, pretty much, and then went and told the owner and the manager, "You'd better watch this table. They're getting a little out of hand."
They came in into the office and said there was 3 gentlemen out here getting very loud and having arguments amongst each other, and she was afraid that it might get too out of control, so she came and got me, and I came out here. They were sitting right here.
The timeline doesn't mesh, because when the FBI explains where the terrorists were in this country during the last 9 months of their conspiracy, the word Venice does not pass their lips. Was there something in Venice we weren't supposed to find? Brenda Cover works in the deli of this supermarket a mile from the airport. She says the terrorist pilots were in Venice just 1 week before the attack. Just blocks from this airport, Mohammed Atta rented a car for what would be the last month of his life. Incredibly, he used it to return to Venice. As we've seen in the FBI's official chronology, the word Venice does not appear in the story of Mohammed Atta's final days. But in the rental cars that Mohammed Atta and Marwan rented right behind me here, they went to Venice twice.
He rented 2 cars over 3 different contracts, a total of about 5 weeks. He picked up that car at closing time, and that one was going to be for 2 weeks. He told me it was going to be for 2 weeks, and told me he had to go over the west coast of Florida, and wanted to know if that would be a problem.
In this nondescript building in Pompano Beach, Florida, we got confirmation that Atta had been in Venice during 2 of the last 3 weeks of his life.
I mean, we asked in order to rent a car to anybody, they got to have credit card, driver's license, and proof of insurance, and he had that. Everything matched. He had Allstate insurance. Address on the insurance card matched his driver's license. And he was a perfect customer.
Warwick remains puzzled by certain inconsistencies in the terrorist actions. More anomalous evidence.
If they were on a suicide mission, they know they were going to be gone in a couple days. Number one, why would you go to the trouble to return the car to us 2 days before? If you got to catch a flight, like say out of Fort Lauderdale Airport to go up north, why don't you just leave the car at the airport? The heck with me. We already had a signed credit card slip. We could have put it on that credit card slip and saved yourself the aggravation. And what would you care? They bothered returning the car here, and on the last contract, we already had a signed credit card slip for Muhammad, and Marwan said, no, don't put it on his credit card. Here, put it on mine. Well, in order for us to take somebody else's credit card on a contract, you got to be on the contract. So that means he had to give us his driver's license, and he had to sign everything. No problem. He gave us his driver's license, got on the credit card, tore up Muhammad's credit card slip, charged it on Marwan. I mean, what all does this make if you're going to be dead in a couple days? What difference does all this make? Would they spend $900 a month to rent a car for me? What would they be up to? Why were they here?
I don't know where he is. Nor do, I just don't spend that much time on him.
The Carlyle Group is a multinational conglomerate that invests in heavily government-regulated industries like telecommunications, healthcare, and particularly defense. Both George W. Bush and George H.W. Bush worked for the Carlyle Group, the same company that counted the bin Laden family among its investors. Carlyle Group was holding its annual investor conference on the morning of September 11th in the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Washington, D.C. At that meeting were all of the Carlyle regulars. James Baker, likely John Major, definitely George H.W. Bush, though he left the morning of September 11th. Shafiq bin Laden, who is Osama bin Laden's half-brother, and was in town to look after his family's investments in the Carlyle Group. All of them together in one room watching as the planes hit the towers, and that in fact the bin Laden family was invested in one of their defense funds, which ironically meant that as the United States started increasing its defense spending, the bin Laden family stood to gain from those investments through the Carlyle Group.
Our Commander-in-Chief, President George W. Bush.
With all the weapons companies it owned, the Carlyle Group was, in essence, the 11th largest defense contractor in the United States.
Thanks a lot.
It owned United Defense, makers of the Bradley Armored Fighting Vehicle. September 11th guaranteed that United Defense was going to have a very good year. Just 6 weeks after 9/11, Carlyle filed to take United Defense public, and in December made a one-day profit of $237 million. But sadly, with so much attention focused on the bin Laden family being important Carlyle investors, the bin Ladens eventually had to withdraw. Bush's dad, though, stayed on as senior advisor to Carlyle's Asia board for another 2 years.
As unseemly as it seems to know that George H.W. Bush was meeting with the bin Laden family while Osama was a wanted terrorist well before September 11th. It's very discomforting for Americans to know that. George H.W. Bush is a man who has obviously incredible reach into the White House. He receives daily CIA briefings, which is the right of any ex-president, but very few ex-presidents actually exercise that right. He does. And I think in a very real way, they are benefiting from the confusion that arises when George H.W. Bush visits Saudi Arabia on behalf of Carlyle and meets with the royal family and meets with the bin Laden family. Is he representing the United States of America, or is he representing an investment firm in the United States of America, or is he representing both? This company is about money. It's not about conspiracies to run the world or engineer political maneuvering and things like that. It's about making money, and it's about making a lot of money, and they've done very well.